American Pickers is one of the most popular reality TV shows of all time. For more than 10 years, Mike Wolfe and Frank Fritz have become famous for traveling across America to find valuable, long-lost antiques. But there is a much more complicated relationship behind the smiles, handshakes, and love for old things. As their friendship fades, rivalries start to form, raising scary questions that have never been answered. Things get even more complicated when shocking court testimony comes out in which Wolfe says Rick Harrison may have been involved in what? Music. Frank Fritz, one of the most famous and loved faces on American Pickers, has been with the show since the beginning. His extensive knowledge of antiques, unwavering passion for old American treasures, and lively personality have made him an icon among fans. But behind the happy scenes of Frank rummaging through dusty warehouses and searching for valuable antiques, there was a private life that was mostly kept secret. Some of his secrets didn't come to light until after his sudden and tragic death in early 2021. Frank had had health problems in the past. Over the years, fans were worried about his changing looks, his struggles with weight, and his long-term problems. But no one could have imagined that the events that led to his death would happen so quickly and in such a strange way. At first, it was thought that he died of complications from a stroke, but it soon became clear that this was more than just a medical accident. Frank's death shocked not only his family and friends, but also. While sudden deaths in the entertainment industry are common, Frank's death left a strange feeling of something not being clear, ambiguous, or questionable. On the surface, everything seemed fine. His show was still a success, and his relationship with longtime partner Mike Wolfe was thought to be stable, but looks can hide darker truths. The official cause of death was a stroke, but the speed with which Frank's health declined left many close to him, including family and friends, wondering what was going on. People who worked on the show, including cast members and producers, were shocked that someone so full of life could be gone in just a few weeks. That's when the rumors started. In his last days, Frank wasn't alone. He was with family, friends, and Mike Wolfe. But during that time, people who knew Wolfe started to notice changes in his behavior and actions, especially after Frank was hospitalized. Even though Wolfe publicly expressed his grief, his quick decisions and control over the production process made many uncomfortable. It seemed like for him, the machine called American Pickers had to keep running despite the loss. When the toxicology report came out, it revealed the shocking truth. The initial autopsy showed details that contradicted the stroke diagnosis. Frank's body chemistry was far above normal, and there were undeniable signs of poisoning. This was no longer a medical problem, it was a murder cover-up. The news that Frank had been poisoned shocked fans and co-workers alike. They were faced with the grim possibility that their longtime friend might have been killed on purpose. As the investigation continued, more and more strange details came out, and Mike Wolfe was at the center of the suspicions. Wolfe was once the public face of grief, but now he was the subject of a federal investigation. The FBI started to look at every action and statement Wolfe made about the events that led to Frank's death. Inconsistencies in Wolfe's story started to show up, and the overall picture of the event became more and more confusing. Whatever the final truth is, Frank Fritz's death is more than just a sad story. It's a reminder of what can happen in the spotlight, where friendship, trust, and reputation can sometimes become fragile pieces in a much bigger picture. At first, investigators were very careful, trying to piece together every little detail without jumping to conclusions. But as they dug deeper, they found more and more strange things that made them suspicious. The first sign was when it was confirmed that Mike Wolfe, Frank Fritz's longtime co-star, had been at Fritz's house just hours before he started showing signs of a stroke. According to Frank's close friends, Wolfe had gone to a small dinner at Fritz's house, which was supposed to be a relaxing event after a long workweek, but it was during that meal that Frank started complaining of being sick, and just hours later he was rushed to the hospital. Rushed to the emergency room in critical condition. Further investigations revealed that Wolfe had been to Fritz's home several times before, having access to his personal items, medicine cabinet, and even food. But what really worried investigators was Wolfe's ability to get his hands on things that could be tampered with and, more importantly, his knowledge of how to do it without drawing attention to himself. Forensic experts later found some disturbing evidence in Fritz's home, including a medicine cabinet that had been disturbed and several bottles of medication that showed signs of tampering. Fingerprints were found on bottles containing the same poison that was found in Fritz's body. These results quickly turned Wolfe from a close witness to a leading suspect in the case. So what drove Wolfe? On the surface, their friendship seemed solid. They traveled thousands of miles together, found America's forgotten treasures, and built the hugely popular show American Pickers, but there were small cracks in their friendship. Wolfe had a big financial stake in the show, and now that Fritz was dead, he had full control over its future. They quickly turned their attention to Mike Wolfe and started closely watching what he did in the days before Frank Fritz's death. According to neighbors, Wolfe went to Fritz's house several times that week, supposedly to help his old friend with some personal problems. But what was really going on behind closed doors? Was it just an act of kindness or a sign of something deeper? As the investigation went deeper, investigators started to see tensions in the relationship between the two men. Witnesses who had been in touch with both men in Fritz's last days described a subtle but clear shift Wolfe seemed to increasingly take. She was in charge of putting together the American Pickers show, while Fritz, who was having health problems, was getting less and less involved. The relationship that had been the key to the show's success seemed to be breaking down because of power, fame, and complicated feelings. When the FBI searched Fritz's home, they found some strange things. His medicine cabinet was full of bottles of unknown drugs that he hadn't been prescribed and that weren't on his official medical history. More specifically, the poisons found in Fritz's body, Wolfe's fingerprints matched the bottles. Showed up on some of these bottles, which raised serious concerns. Even though Wolfe had been to Fritz's house a lot, the fact that biological traces were found on items directly connected to Fritz's death raised questions that could not be ignored. The FBI continued to expand the investigation by focusing on Wolfe's personal communications. His text messages, emails, and call logs were carefully analyzed, and some of the content raised serious concerns. For example, there were conversations about taking over the future of the program if Fritz were no longer around, along with some hints that Wolfe might be involved. One message he sent just hours before Fritz was hospitalized was chilling: "I'll handle things from here on out, it's my time." In the context of the investigation, this statement became more than just a pep talk. It became a key piece of the puzzle that showed Wolfe may have been planning to kill his companion to strengthen his position. The FBI's suspicions were confirmed when they found a series of voice messages Fritz had sent to family members before he died. In them, Fritz made it clear that he was planning to kill his companion. He was nervous around Wolfe and talked about how his co-workers were putting pressure on him, which made him think about leaving the program. He didn't say exactly what was going on, but his tone and content made it clear that he was in danger. With all the evidence in hand, including toxicology results, biological traces, personal communications, and cryptic messages, the FBI was ready to bring Mike Wolfe in for a second interview. During this interview, Wolfe's behavior changed dramatically from the first time they talked to him. He became more defensive and quiet when asked about his last interactions with Fr. Fritz's absence not only left a hole in the show's content, but it also tipped the power balance in Wolfe's favor. What was troubling was how quickly Wolfe took over, turning the brand into a commercial machine, leaving many people wondering if it was a normal response to tragedy or a sign of a hidden agenda. As people started to wonder, investigators found other troubling clues. As the show became more popular, a long-simmering rivalry between the two men started to come to the surface. Wolfe's charisma started to steal the show's attention away from Fritz, who was having a hard time. To outsiders, this seemed like a normal change, but to those who were there, this growing imbalance was a ticking time bomb. The timeline of events, toxicology reports, and Fritz's strange behavior in his last days painted a bleak picture. Wolfe had the motive, the chance, and sadly, the power to do this. As it became clear that this might have been a murder disguised as a stroke, the FBI got involved and a federal investigation began, turning not only were agents looking into Frank Fritz's death, but also the survival of a TV franchise that was once seen as an American icon. They started by tracking down and interviewing those closest to him, including Wolfe, who was one of the last people to see Fritz alive. Wolfe was cooperative and told the agents what happened in great detail, but the level of detail in his account seemed off, almost like it had been practiced. This disconnect between emotion and painful reality made many people suspicious, and the FBI then accessed. Even though Frank's death was first thought to have been caused by a stroke, the autopsy showed that there were other factors at play. Frank's blood had high levels of substances that were not found in any legal prescription drugs he had ever taken. These substances are usually found in cases of intentional poisoning or overdose and were not meant to treat the conditions Frank had. This made the suspicion of poisoning the main focus of the investigation, and a team of toxicologists was called in. Frank Fritz was poisoned with a mix of chemicals that made him quickly deteriorate and die. These chemicals could not have been easily obtained without special knowledge or access to an illegal source. With murder hanging over the whole case, the investigation is about more than just a death. It's about trust, fame, and the dark side behind the glamour of a national TV music show. As the investigation reached its most important stage, the FBI's attention turned to